Hey, and welcome to the Systems Boutique podcast. I'm Dr. Ramona H. Lawrence. Most people just simply call me Dr. Ramona. I'm your systems stylist and your business operations expert. And I'm here to help you build a high-end boutique style back-end that creates ease and scalability for you without sacrificing the luxury experience your client absolutely deserve. So if you're a speaker, a coach, a consultant, a course creator, or author who's ready to stop the overwhelm, ditch the tech confusion, and finally streamline your systems and operations, you are in the right place. Each week, I'll bring you actionable strategy, expert insights, and behind-the-scenes business systems and operations insight to help you scale with ease, efficiency, and absolute excellence. So grab your notebook, your favorite cup of coffee or tea, and let's get to work. Welcome to the Systems Boutique, where systems meet style. Hey, and welcome to this week's episode of the Systems Boutique podcast. And who is in the boutique to style you today? It is Carlos Malave. We are so excited to have Coach Carlos in the boutique. He is a curriculum specialist, and we are so excited about all the work that he is going to do. So, Coach Carlos, please tell us a little bit more about the work that you do, and then we will hop into the first question.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be a part of the boutique, Systems Boutique, and everything you got going on, Dr. Ramona. I admire what you do and what you've been doing over the last several years. So first and foremost, I'm an educator practitioner by heart. So I've been in the classroom for over a decade, and I've done all different subjects, all different positions within schools. So I have a clear understanding of what curriculum looks like, how does it work, and how to adjust in the moment. So that's just the main part. Because I think when people are coaches on things, I normally ask, are you a practitioner of it? Are you that person you say you are? So with the work that I've been doing and speaking about, it's a lot of that, right? Alignment to my lifestyle, alignment to what I've done in the past. So with this curriculum work that I've been doing for the last several years, when I coach people, it's about being able to find solutions and being able to navigate the adjustments that need to be made in live time. And that's basically what I do. And we'll get into more details on what that looks like.
That's good. And I love the alignment. I was talking in the last episode with Coach Gio about the same thing, is that do we do the work, or what is the work that we have done? And then how do we relay that to other people so that they can have success in the things that they're going to do? And so that's so good. But let's be real, okay? So most people, they really overcomplicate their course. So they're going into the education system, they're going into places where they need to educate people, whether it's in the education system or not. And so they really overcomplicate it. And another thing that we talked about last week in our episode with Coach Gio was that people forget how far they've come. And so they go back to teach a thing. And when they go back to teach a thing, they're so far removed from it that they only speak from their privilege that they now have, right? And so tell us, what's one system that can take a curriculum from just this idea of overwhelm or this feeling of overwhelm to being organized?
Well, that is a great question. I love that. And the first thing that I would say before I get into specifically what systems is people pay for those who are familiar. People pay for those who are familiar and people that are specific. I think people, when you're creating curriculum, you want to be a la carte and try to fit so many that you don't even belong in. I think when we talked about earlier, alignment, knowing who you are and what you're about, and your work has to speak that. You have to live in that space of, I am my work, right? You're a representation of it, right? And that's where you want to lean into. When you overcomplicate it, is because you're trying to fit or trying to be in more spaces than you need to be, right? You lose your identity. So the system that I would primarily advise my clients and people that work with me is to be very specific as to who your target audience is, first and foremost. Once you find out your target audience, you're able to look at the gaps that need to be filled on your particular road. Look to the other roads on the side of you, right? Look at the road in front of you and fill those particular gaps. And that is what made me successful, right? And along the way, people see that I specifically know how to fill these gaps. And then I become more familiar because people see me filling these same gaps. Then on the outside that have reached a little further, they'll look back and be like, oh, they'll reach back and they'll want to work with you and they want to help you and networking. That's how it actually happens organically. But you have to stay on your own road. It sounds, cliche, but it is very true. You have to stay in your own space, focus on the gaps that are in front of you, and become a problem solver for the situations that you can be a master at. And focusing on continuously getting those repetitions in, on filling those gaps and working your craft and be able to support in those areas so that then it becomes easy for you to identify it sooner. So then you become the person that's familiar to those people dealing with the same issues.
That's good. And so I know that a lot of people have this issue where they're trying to be way too broad. They see everything that everybody else is doing, and they want to ensure that they have a little piece of that. So how do you help people to get beyond that and to really hone in on what it is that they do? What is one step that we can take to say, this is the thing that I'm going to do versus seeing all the things that everybody else is doing and wanting to do a little piece of everything?
I think this is my biggest strength, and I advise all leaders and coaches to think this way. When you are a leader, I think about these two pictures, like the leader that pulls and then the leader that pushes from behind, right? You want to do the latter, right? You want to be the person that pushes from behind. So there's a lot of observation. As a leader, you become more of a student. And I say that because more questioning happens, more investigation happens. I get to know you personally. When I coach you, I want to know you as a person. Right. And I want to know what makes you tick, what makes you go, what makes you move, act. And those are the things that you should be focusing on. You can't say, hey, because you've been in this space, you may not be good in this space. Right. There's so many people that have jobs and careers that they just fell into it. They weren't necessarily good at it. They wasn't their calling, right, to say. So I would say I love this part of the work that I do as a coach. I get to know you. It's a relationship thing. It's not networking is all relationships. And as I'm working with millionaires and billionaires now, I'm learning more and more, like it's all about relationships, organic relationships. And how do you build that? By getting to know people on a higher level, on a deeper level. It's not about you talking more. My job is not to talk more. Yes, this is a podcast and you're asking me specific questions. My coaching sessions, I talk less because I want to get to know you. When I speak and when I do engagements and workshops across the country and internationally, I found that I get paid more to speak less because I facilitate engagement. And when you're thinking about curriculum, you want to set up your lessons, your activities to facilitate and engage action because people learn by doing. And if you can connect stories to an activity that gets them to do it and give them a memory of like, holy cow, yes, I know I did it. I remember doing it in this workshop. Then they take it in real life. That is what you want to apply. So I think that's the biggest thing is getting to know your people and connecting those real relationships. Because when you know someone, it becomes easier to help push them in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. And that goes into this idea of outcomes, right? Because that's what we're looking for. We want to bring about transformation in people's lives. And so I have taken your course, your curriculum course, and it is excellent. And I know that we talked a lot about how do we get people to that outcome. And so I want to ask you about that. So let's think about this course or this curriculum like it's a road trip. So what GPS system would you recommend to make sure people don't get lost on the way to those outcomes? So we got to get to the outcome, and now we need the GPS. And so what do you recommend?
I love me some acronyms. I love me some acronyms. So I would start, especially if you're doing K to 12 and corporate in particular. You want to take it back to the basics. You want to take it back to the ABCs: attendance, behavior, connections. Schools usually have one or two of those issues in their schools. And if you can create solutions to those problems, right, that should be your GPS. So before you even approach a university, a college, a corporate organization, you should do your research and find out what are their ABCs, right? And another acronym specifically in college are the RPGs: retention, persistence, and graduation rates. All about that. So the GPS, you need the ABCs and you need the RPGs.
Okay.
Get on the right GPS.
I love it.
Well,
Okay. So we definitely can remember that. Okay. Here's something else that you're very good at, is helping us to get to the learning outcome. So I just learned something: the ABCs, the RPGs, and that is our GPS, right? Awesome. And so as we're thinking about that, when people are designing a system, right, they're trying to get the ABCs, the RPGs, whatever it is that they need. What's a common mistake that people make when they're designing that curriculum? And then how can just some sort of simple prevent those mistakes?
yes, I think the first thing is, as we said earlier, you try to fit in spaces that you don't. Like, say a school, they need your services, but then they say, can you also do this? We're to jump and say yes, even if you don't. I think that's the biggest mistake. I think your system should be set up to stay in these particular areas that you can adjust and you can align. So, for example, I'm the head of education for a new company called Open, where it has connections to, it's basically a company trying to help students understand the integral parts of being a successful business man or woman, right? And you learn about time management, conflict resolution, networking, business strategy. So I can take that and say a school is dealing with behavior, for right? I will take pieces of that curriculum that will help the conflict resolution, the networking, right? Knowing how to build relationships, right? So I would say is staying true to your specialty, because that's where you can shine. If you try to come out of your scope of sequence that, hey, I can try that, you can lose people, right? You want to be doing too much. Keep it. People pay for what's familiar and what's specific, and stay on track with that when you're developing your system and you're presenting and demoing your system. Stay true to that and stay in that lane. And eventually, the more you do it, the better you'll be, and more people will hear about it.
Yeah, I love this idea of familiar and specific, and really just having that as a mantra that we say: familiar and specific. But you also talked about in the beginning of this that it's great to collaborate and have these networks and these people that you are working with who have maybe different skill sets. And so do you ever recommend that if a company says, can you do this, but you don't necessarily do it, but there's someone that you collaborate with who does do it, do you suggest then still saying yes, but then bringing a collaborator so that you stay in your lane, but also have this other person? Or is that bad practice?
Oh, no. I thought you was going a different direction. I
Oh,
think,
okay.
I,
Your face said, oh,
yeah,
no. And so I
yeah.
said, okay, well,
I think let this be an example, like what we're doing together. You and your specialty on building the system boutique and wanting to offer curriculum services. Sourced it. You brought me on. You knew, you took my course, you practiced, you became a practitioner of the work, and you learned it. And I think people, once they take the course, they think it's like, oh, I can teach it now. I can use the same information and teach it. Whereas that's not, if you want to build relationships properly and you want to build your network, I am very big on this. And I push everybody that tries to build relationships to do this. Give more than you try to receive.
absolutely.
You know there's an opportunity that does not fit you, right? And it fits better someone that you work with or somebody you know. Throw them the bone, right? Because that will come back to you. I truly believe in karma. I think it would always, it's the reason I've gotten to where I've gotten to. And even this new position at Open it came from someone threw me a bone back because I've done work with people and they knew me as this great person. They brought my name up when the word curriculum came. Then the CEO, who's a millionaire, come and found me, came and found. And I think that's what you need to position. It's a lot of you doing the good work and not trying to get in the way of anything. And I think you're a prime example of that, Dr. Ramona. Like, you are building the system boutique because you want to support more areas, right? And support clients on a higher level and expand it. And you brought a team together, whether it's people that's helping others learn how to write a book, to build curriculum, to speak and build systems, right? Bringing it all together and you're collaborating. So let this podcast be the answer to your question, right? What you're doing now, this conversation is proof of concept. You brought me in as someone that you know has a specialty in curriculum to support people that in your network. And I do the same. I bring you in when I see a way that we fit. So we've gone and done business like this for a while now. I think it's about a year we've worked together. And every time an opportunity comes up that I hear works better for you, I bring you in, I introduce you. And I think it's the best way to do business because you want to get to a place where people bring up your name when you're not in the room. That's how you do it.
Yeah, that's good. That is really good. And this is a great example of that. I don't want to teach people how to do curriculum, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to teach people how to do systems.
I don't.
And so, at all. And so I think that that's something important for people to start to do, because often we're like, oh, if I don't do this, then I can't tell somebody else about it. And not we, but people in general are like, I need to make sure that I keep all of the things for me. I need to get the bag for me. And that is not the way to get to the highest level of business. It's got to be this idea of strong collaboration, true collaboration, not just looking at somebody and saying, this is how I can use them, but how do we really work together and have this mutual benefit for everybody involved? And I really do admire that about the way that you do your work, because I have seen it in action. I've seen how you collaborate with people and how you ensure that you give other people opportunities. And so I think that bringing that back to curriculum, it is something that would be important if you know that there's something that you don't do. And then how do we, stay into something that we know that we can give the client and be very specific about in the work that we do.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So I call people in the audience the chic CEOs. So how can chic CEOs ensure their content flows smoothly without turning their curriculum into a boring lecture series? And so we love engagement. We love making sure that people get the information, but it often comes off as this kind of dull, rote learning that is not fun for anybody. And so how do we ensure that the content flows without being this dull, boring lecture series?
I think doing your research as well. What I admire about clients that have been successful, my strongest clients have went out into the field and observed classes, right? To the network and sat in the classroom and just seen the structure of it, the time management of it, right? Because that's how I teach it, right? I'm like, okay, you got to think about when the kids enter in the room, what are they doing? What's going to grab their attention? Is there going to be an activity on the board while the teacher's walking around taking attendance and so that they get straight to work? And then right after you take attendance, they're finishing up with their do first question, right? Or responding to a blurb on the board. And it facilitates an activity right afterwards. And you just did your attendance. So you think about all the little things that need to happen within the classroom. It's not just the lesson, it's the management of the classroom. So teacher has to walk around, take attendance. Kids have to walk in, take off their bags, all this. So you got to facilitate that time for them to do that. And then if you do an engaging activity on the board for them to jump straight into it, to catch their attention. There's many ways to do that. You could talk about, let's say, for example, you're talking about miscommunication in class. Just give it, right? That's the topic, right? You can start on, when was the last time someone was toxic with you in a conversation. What? Tell that to a high school kid. They can write for days. They're going to sit down, I'm like, oh my God, that happened last period, right? They'll start to write, and you'll never see a kid write more in that time. So like creatively having a question that you know is being talked about, you build awareness of the culture of the school, right? And as a consultant, when I come in to work with the school, I do a lot of that work. I talk with those teachers. I build that relationship. So when I'm building out these lessons, I know the situations they're dealing with, right? Cyberbullying, communication, like language. So like whatever it is, right? You want to target it. So you start with an activity like that. They're engaged, they're writing. Then you pop up with an activity. Okay, find a partner on the other side of the room and look them in the eye and tell them about your situation. Now you have engagement on the topic, and then they sit down after another 5 minutes and you take notes on what toxic behavior is. Now it's like, oh my God. Now you got to think about creative ways. You want to think about as a speaker, as a curriculum developer, think about those moments when you sat in that room and the speaker came up or the presenter came up and just read every word on the board. You were lost. There was no way you were paying attention to that. You want to break that mode. You want to break that cycle of continuing to be that person that just reads stuff, right? You want to facilitate engagement and activity. So when you're pushing lessons and workshops, right? The way I do my lesson plans are the same way I do my presentations, right? You want alignment, right? Because practice you get on it, the easier it becomes to talk about, easier it becomes to facilitate. So I would push you to think about all the little intricacies that happen in a classroom, have conversations with teachers, former teachers, sit in the classroom, observe. There's videos you can watch on this. You don't even have to go to a school building. You can watch what a classroom looks like on YouTube, right? And be able to learn in that way and see yourself, put yourself in their shoes and see where you can make things spark. You can see things like stand out and more than what's happening in that space already. So that's what I advise.
Good. And so that idea of being really familiar with the environment that you're going to go in and making sure that you are doing things that break the mold, I think, is so important. And so let's think about this. If I gave you 60 seconds, you got 60 seconds to convince somebody who's building out a course that they need a curriculum and they need a curriculum system specifically. What would you say? So go. What would you say?
So when it comes to curriculum, everybody thinks about having this huge amount of paperwork and lessons and lines of study. It's not that. It's the idea of knowing how to build it. I'm going to teach you how. I'm not going to fish for you. I'm going to show you how to fish so that you would always know how to adjust it and build it out. I get paid to build curriculum because of who I am, the relationships I build, and the way I do it. I can take your idea and your concept and put it on paper and make it come to life in the classroom. That is the skill that I teach in my program. So when you're thinking about a curriculum program and being tedious and all that, I meet you where you're at. I've dealt with people with PhDs that work at universities, that have corporations, and I've worked with people that have no educational background and help them become successful in this space. Because I meet you where you're at. I teach you the skill of learning how to do a curriculum outline, how to do lesson plans, unit plans, right? How to pitch, how to figure out the budget and what that looks like. And then I bring in those people, those experts that exist with me at the college level, K-12, corporate level, to give you the game and hear your pitch and say, hey, don't say it like this, say it like that, and give you a network to continue to build the understanding and support system to be able to continue the work, right? It's always customizable. I help you become customizable in this space. You won't have a curriculum. You will be a curriculum developer. That's between my program.
Yeah, good stuff.
60 seconds?
Yeah, it's close enough. So everybody, this is what you get in the Systems Boutique. You get amazing coaches who do the work and who not only just say that they do the work, but who actually do the thing. They have alignment. They have all of the goods for you. And so we are excited to have you, Coach Carlos, in the Systems Boutique. And thank you all for watching and listening to this episode. And we will see you next time on the next episode of the Systems Boutique podcast. See you later. Bye. All right, my chic CEOs, that's a wrap for today's episode. If you found value in today's conversation, do me a favor. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with another star. That's a speaker, a teacher, an author, or a coach who absolutely needs it. And hey, if you're ready to finally get your systems together, let's chat. Head over to thesystemsboutique.com/strategy to book your systems style strategy call, where we'll map out your perfect business back end. So until next time, keep it chic, keep it systemized, and keep shining like the absolute star you are. See ya.